It's the Reedie Zee Show. Reedie Zee Show. Reedie Zee Show.
Welcome back, Reedie Zee Monday Command. We have a special guest. Donna Hopkins will be joining the program today as we discuss and continue to discuss this free agency period. What are we in, week 3, Z?
Yeah. Yep.
Week 3 of free agency and much more coming on Reedie Zee Monday Command starting right now.
It's the Reedie Zee Show. Reedie Zee Show. It's the Reedie Zee Show. Reedie Zee Show. Reedie Zee Show.
Good morning. Good morning. How you doing?
Good morning. Hold on 1 second. There you go. Good morning. Good morning.
Hello.
How you feeling?
Great. You know, it's been a busy off season already. Somebody asked me on Sunday, they said, have it slowed down for you? I was like, absolutely not. We're in the middle of free agency and getting ready to go into the draft. So I told them it's never a slow down day for the Commanders.
Absolutely. Never ever. But even for us, I mean, we feel overwhelmed and busy and doing a lot of things. So I already know being that close and interested, you got to get all your pieces out. I'm sure it's nonstop, but salute to you and the work that you do. And we definitely thank you for, taking time to come on our show to share with us of Reedie and Zee. And welcome. So Reedie's going to start us out and kind of, go from there. But first up and foremost, if you for you guys are watching, if you have not already, please like, share, subscribe at Reedie and Zee. And let's get the show rolling.
So, Miss Donna, with free agency, we're in like the third week. I said me and Z at the top of the show, maybe the third week of free agency. I might be wrong. It's all blurring together now. It seems like we kind of been discussing this ad nauseum for the last few weeks or whatever. But how are you feeling thus far? Like with the additions of OA and the others, Van Jefferson, and some of the free agencies that they brought in all across the board, pretty heavy defensively. How are you feeling about this free agency period?
Can I just give a clap of the hands as far as for Adam Peters and him looking at the defensive side of the ball first, because that has been my main tone all during the offseason, is that the Commanders have to get better up front in the trenches at the combines. Adam Peters was basically saying that they were going to look at that end. And you know how sometimes things can change up with what people say, but he's been true to what he said as far as the defensive line. I know early on during the end of the regular season 2025, I asked them about depth on this team across the board, and that they see that they have depth. And they said, really, Coach Quinn and Adam Peters in their last presser said that that is an area that they would look at. We know that this Commanders team, even with all the injuries, and the injuries showcase something, they did not have depth. So on the defensive line, when Armstrong went down, when Jean Baptiste went down, when Dietrich Wise went down, you saw the Commanders right there as far as depth. So it was musical to my ears when they drafted, free agency. And we can go into the draft later, because at the combines, I was looking at defensive linemen at the combines. And the Commanders, when you look at what they've done on defense as far as up front, you say, okay, it's some heavy duties. Stronger, faster, younger. So you've got to like what they did. And then they added a linebacker, which is another position, and then a cornerback. And everybody may say, Amit, basically, is he too small? But he adds another area. He's not going to be the starter, probably. He's going to be a guy that comes in and he's physical. That's what the Commanders needed. Looking at that secondary last year that was, atrocious. But I do like what Adam Peters has done overall with free agency so far, because he's hit some key positions, and on defense, he stayed strong on defense, added a few pieces on the offensive side, and then, they signed some key people back. So I'm giving them an A+. Well, okay, maybe I'm hard with the pen. Let's just say an A- so far.
Oh wow, that's a a good grade. Us around the fan base, we've kind of been saying a B+. In the fan base, we're a little hard. We kind of we want all of the splash names and all of those big time players, but all the reports have said we were kind of in on some of those big time players, but it just may have not worked out for us. So I would say that it has been a solid offseason thus far, when they were able to retain some of the key guys that they wanted to bring back, especially on the offensive line, as well as, bringing in like a Tim Settle, somebody that was here before, and bringing in a Dafe Owe and some of the other guys that they brought in. And then I thought Amik Robertson was a good pickup, solid, feisty corner. Within this fan base, they're kind of saying that he reminds them of a Marshawn Lattimore, but I would say I think he's a different player, and then he's not necessarily, like you said, going to be in that specific role of a starter. In my opinion, I don't know how you feel about this, Z, but I think we kind of set ourselves up to go anywhere in the draft where we can definitely go best player available.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so as well. Going in, everybody, pre-draft, and one of the biggest things we talked about at this point, the conversation is going to continue to keep happening, is that if Jeremiah Love is there at 7, you take him. That was one of Reedie's earliest declarations that he desires for this team and things. So, and I kind of when he said it, when he first said it to me, I'm like, initially in my head, I'm like, defense. But after I sat and evaluated what he was saying, it's like my decision changed, because he just completely changed the entire aspect of the offense, and he's a pure game changer. So, when that conversation came out and we put it out there, everybody's reaction: how would you get a running back? Why would you draft a running back? We need defense. We need defense. And again, one of the key things my brother mentioned is that this is all based on what we do in free agency, and we want to make sure we go out and free agency and address the defense. And boom, Adam Peters, first day of free agency, first couple of days, defense. We started seeing probably with like 5-6 defensive signings. So I do feel like that they address the defense, as you mentioned, Donna, younger, faster, more athletic. And I think that'll continue to be the type of players that we pursue. Kind of coming in, we kind of went with a lot of veterans, more, because we had a younger team. We had, Jayden being the rookie quarterback. The veterans kind of helped mold them and things like that. And we end up going to NFC Championship. But as we saw last year, we needed that mix, because when, we had issues in the roster, we didn't have that flexibility to kind of, come back behind and keep the train moving in a sense. So I definitely feel like we addressed the defense well. There is still some key pieces, that we can, talk more into. But I think overall, yes, we have set ourselves up to go BPA at that position, whether that be running back, wide receiver, whomever. So,
and people got to remember that all the pieces still have not been put in place for this team early on. We're still a long ways from the draft until the end of April, and they moved, and everybody always wants these big name players. Sometimes the big name players does not work out when you bring them into the camp. And the Commanders are getting certain players. You got to be able to fit into the brotherhood. This is a thing that I think people don't realize. I'm in the locker room every day with these players after practice, and a season that they had in 2025, that would have broke a locker room, because if you're losing each week and everything, it comes apart at the seams and everything. And that's one thing that De'Ami Brown, being back here in Washington, when we interviewed him, he talked about the brotherhood and it really being a true brotherhood, because when he was with the Jaguars for 1 year, it was tough in that 1 year for him. It did not work out. He started off strong, but it fell apart at different areas. But when you have a connection like Washington, and it was a true brotherhood in there. I didn't see any cracks in the foundation where, you know, they were losing, they were pointing fingers at an area that may not have been planned well. I didn't see any of that. So when you put together a good locker room that stays together like that, Dedrick Wise talked about that a lot also to me, is that they stuck together no matter what. And I heard that. Being an athlete myself, you understand locker rooms when you go into it and you're like, oh, they just vanilla, they just talking a lot of stuff, but they really stay together. And so when you look at Washington again, at this team that they're building, they were heavy on the defense because guess why? The defense were terrible in the last 2 or 3 years. They didn't have the pieces together. They signed a safety in Nick Cross. I think one of the big ones that they signed on the defense, along with the front of the defense, is Leo Chanel. This is a guy that comes in and he's able to do a lot of things. He's fast. You know, he can cover tight ends. It's something that the Commanders had problems with. So you're talking about youth again. And then, you know, we say the Commanders addressed the defense a lot. Well, like I said, they needed to address the defense a lot, but the back end still need to address a little bit. So if they can get another safety, another corner, I think they'll be sweet on the defensive side. On the offensive side, they signed a tight end that was key. Chiggs, guy that can do it all. He's going to be a nightmare to go up against when you're trying to scheme against this guy because he can catch the ball well, he can run after the catch, and he can play in the slot. So he's going to be a guy that really fits into that. We talked about the running back room, and you talk about Love. How can you not pick a Love if he's available? Because Adam Peters told me during the combines, you can't talk about Jeremiah Love being a running back because he adds so many other things to your offense. He's not a running back. He's an everything back. He can create a nightmare for you getting out there. He can block. He has the speed. He has the wiggle room and all of that stuff, along with the other two guys that you signed for on this roster as far as Rashid White and Ford. And then, you know, Bill Crosby Merritt, who you already had in there, is only going to get better with that back room. So depending on how this team finishes in free agency, it'll be the telltale if, you know, if Love is available. And if he is, you better snatch him up.
Yeah, that's one of the things that, I'm sorry, Z, but that's one of the things that I was saying early on. I think I'm probably the first in the Commanders content community, first person to say Jeremiah Love, because I seen, like you mentioned, all of those things that he brings to the table as far as catching the ball up out of the backfield. He can literally take it the distance anywhere on the field. So back then, if we rewind to that, I was basically saying if we had an opportunity to get one of the top 3 tight ends that were out there in free agency, that would set us up in good position, because can you imagine you got Terry McLaurin on the outside? They say that's the vertical guy. You got Chig now in the inside at the tight end. I seen him take an out 70 yards, a 5-yard out, 70 yards. And you imagine him going down the seams. Jayden, he gives you that ability to pass the ball or run the ball. Then you still got Bill. And if you go draft a Jeremiah Love that can do it, how do you defensively stop all of that? Like you literally, it's hard to try to double team anybody. And now the jury is still out on, you know, we still need a solid number 2 wide receiver. You know, things didn't work out with, you know, who we thought they were going to go get in free agency, but there's still some time. If you do sign an Ayuk, say you sign an Ayuk, you know, that offense is like, that's all we really needed offensively. And I was on the record saying draft everybody on defense at that point, because like just with that, the tight end, and if you have an opportunity to draft Jeremiah Love, that just makes everything so much better. You just got multiple weapons. Like we say ad nauseum on this show, you need weapons. Like you have to give Jayden weapons in this period of time when he's on this rookie deal. So I just wanted to say that to you, Don, and that was a really good point that you brought up. Like if he's there, you have to take him. Honestly, like I don't think that any of these other players that are slighted to land to us at 7 are better. I just overall football players, I don't think they're better. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, it's a running back, but I don't think so.
Hey, running backs, they say come a dime a dozen, but not like him, they don't. But I'm going to get you because you said something wide receiver wise. That is the area I think that the Commanders really need to focus in on the offensive side of the ball, because the receivers last year, Terry didn't play until late. Debo got hurt, but he was solid when he was in there. But that's an area that you really need to address. Ayuk, I don't know why everybody keeps calling out his name. He's not at the top of my list, because this is a guy that you don't know what you're going to get because he's been injured. So the thing that the Commanders suffered with is guys that come in here that they've been injury prone and they can't move forward. Does he fit this team overall? Not just what he can do as a receiver, and you don't know what he can do right now because you haven't seen it in the last year or so. So my thing is Washington really needs to be careful about, possibly him coming here or really talking about that, because there's so many other receivers out there right now in the house, beyond Terry. And I'm looking that Debo may be back here this year because he has not been signed yet. But you've got Jefferson, you got De'Ami Brown, who can stretch the field right there. Luke McCaffrey, I'm not for sure what that situation is because there's been rumors of trade in the draft, but I haven't really heard that say that is solid. And then, Burks, I think that you have to give him an opportunity to really play because we didn't see enough of him because he did not come out in here, starting out right off. So he had to be worked in. And with a new offensive coordinator, you want to see where he's at. And then Jalen Lane, can he make that step forward? In his second year. So they have receivers in the house and whatever, but that number 2 is still a question mark. But Ayuk, I'm not for sure like I say, he's not on my radar because I think there's other receivers out there that Washington can get in free agency, even if they wait in the draft, where that is. But I'm kind of like wanting experience. They brought De'Ami back to be that experience, but still, I think that there's other people out there besides the name that you're calling out.
Yeah. And I'm sure that's going to be tough for a lot of fans to hear. And I mean, it's definitely some truth to it, because I looked at that situation and I've been, saying it, that I think it's going to be a lock that we sign him if he is released. But at the same time, with me being confident that we could, potentially get him, I've always been saying that it always have to be Ayuk and someone else because you have to figure that situation out. They're talking about it being a prove it deal and things of that nature. So you're not really worried about an over investment there, per se, if it's some truth to that. Now, who that other person may be, whether it's through the draft or free agency, we'll see. I love the re-signing, bringing De'Ami back. I said that kind of earlier on during the offseason, and on this show, Reedie looking at me funny, or we have a collab show with Ball in the Burgundy and Juan Gotti. They looking at me funny. Well, Juan kind of adjusted and came aboard on the back end of the as we got closer, but it's like De'Ami does stretch the field, and I know that he don't have big numbers. You can't look at the stats and kind of figure out what De'Ami contributes. But at the end of the day, like we're season ticket holders, so we're at the games. You see him stretching the field, whether he's getting thrown the ball or not. And in situations when he was thrown the ball, I felt like he was underused. But in the situations where he did get opportunities, he made his share of plays. He went out last year and went to Jacksonville. They threw him $10 million. I couldn't argue with it. Go get your money, De'Ami. You got your money. You went out there. They packed that wide receiver room, like he mentioned in his presser. He got injured. He talked about how to try to battle him through all that. But to come right back and just, come right back here, the way it happened, I was excited. I was super surprised that he got under $2 million to come in. So, but what that said to me was like, okay, this is a situation that he wanted to be in and be a part of. Like the money wasn't the thing. It was more so about getting back to his brothers. Because even, I don't know if it was you or someone asked him, the question that led to him talking about like through all through the season last year, he stayed connected with these guys, and texting them and going back and forth. So all of that was good to hear. So I'm excited to see what that, because I think De'Ami's going to have a little chip on his shoulder. So I'm excited to see what he could bring. But like as you mentioned, we still need more there. And then, you look at the situation where, all right, we got $50 million in cap. Adam Peters has been structuring these contracts phenomenally. So it's like, okay, can you see a situation where we kind of make a splash? I mean, at this point, it won't be through free agency, but maybe as we get closer or after the draft, you see a potential wide receiver move. Maybe a team can draft a younger guy and they try to move off a veteran, because you've seen, like, before free agency, DJ Moore was on the move. You see Michael Pittman was on the move. It's other guys that's been on the move. Do you see a scenario where we could potentially maybe even look at the trade market for another receiver?
Yeah, even though down in Tampa, Michael Evans, everybody was big on him. And I was looking at him again, he stayed injured all the time. So he wasn't on my radar either, because when you look at players that have been injured a lot, do you really want to take that chance? Because you need a home run hitter in that number 2 spot to move it forward. The reason why Diami fits this team and bringing him back is only for 1 year. Adam Peters has been big on bringing people in for 1 year just to see how they work out. Remember Diami in the final year that he played when they went to almost the Super Bowl? He had an outstanding 3 solid games. When you look at his numbers overall, I think it's 29 catches, 100 and some yards, a touchdown in there. I think I'm close to what he had. He finished strong, and Diami came on at the end of the season, where you seeing him develop, seeing him be that guy that you can go through, because of working with Jayden again is going to just add to that, because he knows Jayden, he knows this locker room. But again, still, you need another receiver. Does Deebo Samuel's come back? And if he comes back, does that finish the wide receiver room that you can go into 2026 with? Or is it another guy like you spoke about, that is some receivers still out there? I'm going to have to go and do my homework to see who's out there, who could be a possible guy that you can pull away from someone. But the only thing that I caution on with the Commanders is you can't afford to mortgage the team, being that give away draft picks, because the Commanders are in the position that they are right now with the draft coming up, because they gave away so many number 1 draft picks. And now you go into the draft this year, you hardly have any. So a lot of people were saying if the Commanders go into the draft and Love is not there, or one of the other core players on the defensive side of the ball, whether it be the safety position or does that give Commanders room enough and remember, we haven't even talked about the center. The Commanders need a backup center or starting center. So that's one area on the offensive line that the Commanders still need to address. Will that guy be available? Because it's some good offensive linemen as far as the center position goes. So the Commanders have room to wiggle depending on how they finish up with free agency. Do they go down in the draft to get more picks? If somebody is courting them with a certain player that they're trying to get rid of, that the Commanders may need, being that it could be a center or it could be a wide receiver still out there. I still think that it's a wide receiver out there in free agency that the Commanders could get in here, besides Ayuk, that the Commanders could pull in. And nothing against him. My thing about him is injuries, that we don't know where he stands at coming, and does he come in here and fit into the locker room? All of those pieces play into place when you're talking about putting people on your team, your roster, and not just putting them on there because they're a big name. Everybody goes after, again, those big names. But again, I think the Commanders have some wiggle room right now, is how they finish up in free agency. And like I said, I'm going to do my homework to see what possible receivers could still be out there that the Commanders could possibly grab and not have to give up that much to grab.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because I'm going to give you the receivers that are out there at the moment. So you have Cheetah, Tariq Hill's out there. You have Jawan Jennings that's out there. You have a Keenan Allen that's out there, just to name. But, if we're going to go Cheetah, like for me, I think even a not healthy 100% Cheetah helps you, because you talking about taking the top off the defense, and you have to respect that. Like, you just have to respect that. So, like, speed kills. But you also brought a De'Ami Brown, so he can kind of fill in that role in that void or whatever. And then, you know, obviously you have Jordan Tyson in the draft. You have Cornell Tate in the draft. You also have what's the guy from we were talking about the other day, Z? I can't remember his name. Makai Lemon from USC. You have him out there. So they have options to wherever they look to go. If they go receiver, if the sexy pick, you know, Jeremiah Love isn't there, then you got options.
It'll be bye receiver. Sorry, yeah. We're gonna get that running back.
Yeah, but also you got Mansour Delaney, the cornerback out of LSU, that's still out there. You know what I'm saying? Do they want to go Caleb Downs if he's there? Like, safety, like, I'm not too. I like him. I think he's a really good player, but I'm not sold on him for us. But you know, there are other options.
I might not give up him. I mean, I think it's three positions that we really need to address. Again, wide receiver, we have to. Running back, you know, they've got some guys in there. I remember in camp last year, they had 6 running backs, which Austin Eckler said that's the most that he's ever seen in the backfield. So they have multiple areas. You know, Chris Rodriguez gets away. But again, that's free agency and everything. And I'm not mad because Chris got money, and I thought that he was underutilized in a lot too. But this whole backfield was underutilized in Kingsbury offense because he didn't like to run the ball. And one thing about them saying that this year, and the reason why I said Love is key is because they said they're going to run the ball this year. Music to an offensive lineman's ear, and music to mine's too, is that you have to be able to run the ball. Look at the teams that went to the Super Bowl in the playoffs, solid running games all the way around. If you've got that, you're going to change the dynamics of your offense when you can run the ball. So that's the reason why Love fits so much better in this offense, along with the people they already have in house, is because you creating a nightmare for teams to be having to defend him and the other running backs, plus, you know, the wide receiver thing. So wide receiver, running back, still to me, as far as the center position, cornerback, safety are areas that you still need to address on this team with a little more depth than you have right now.
So we had your colleague Candy Waller on the show last week or the week before. And, you know, this is one of the questions that we posed to her, because I'm on record saying, no disrespect, but I don't think Nick Allegretti is a starter in this league at the center position. So, like, that was one of the things that you brought up, was that we need to go out and either get a backup center or potentially a starting center. How confident are you that they address that before the draft?
Whew. Again, looking at what's out there right now, the guy that I would have wanted was up in Baltimore. If they could have snagged him on the front end of things,
$27 million, though.
Yeah. I mean, they wanted a lot of money, but he's a solid center too. So of course the Commanders had the money too if they wanted to go that route, but they addressed to me the area that needed the most, and that's the defensive front. I think that you really have to address that position. When I talked about on the front end of when we got started, it's depth, and they don't have depth there at the center position. Allegretti, he played some last year. Remember when he came in for Biotish at that one? Nothing against him, but he was pushed around. And so therefore, I think that they really have to address the center position in getting a guy that could start. Even if you put out Allegretti out there, give him the opportunity to start. But remember, the Commanders talk about competition. Competition is so key for this team. And so in order, just like the kicking game, when you didn't have competition there, you see what happened. So it being that this is a competition, competing team against each other, is that you have to address the center's position still to add depth to that position. Whether Allegretti is the backup, the starter, or whomever, you still need to get that other guy in here. Injuries happen all the time.
Yeah.
We don't have to look far than last year for that.
Yeah, facts. facts. So yeah, so then you look at the situation like we touched on it slightly with Chig. I believe that was like when people ask me who the most exciting signing, that I think we did this offseason, I would say Chig. One, because I think it's a great deal. You get him, I think he had 3 year, 30 million or up to 30 million or something like that. So you get him at like 10 million a year. You get in a situation where he's hungry. He felt underutilized. He openly talked about it, in his interview, like just to see himself be schemed up from week one on, like it's just so exciting to him and things of that nature. And he just sounds so extra motivated. They talk about Blau, mimicking Ben Johnson and how the uses of the tight ends. And that was one of the big questions, leading up to, when we talked, because when we talked to Candy, did you see Ertz coming back? Did you see us upgrading that room? And she definitely said that a tight end somebody would be brought in, and then boom, it was Chig. So that was a great call. So looking into it now, it's like, okay, now that we got Chig, I'm still kind of thinking too that you can't forget about Ben Sinnott, because I felt like he was, even though he hasn't shown us much, I feel like he wasn't given much opportunity to do so. So how are you feeling around the Ben Sinnott situation? Do you feel kind of like the same? Is it a make or break year for him, or because I really look at that situation like I kind of like said it to Candy. It just seemed like Cliff didn't like him.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Chig to me hit it out the ballpark. You needed him, and I just want to holler out to one thing he said. Everybody talked about, oh, he's not a good blocker and whatever. He said that's the narrative of everybody else. He can block. He just wasn't used to block, but he can do that. That's not his narrative. That's everybody else's narrative. You talk about Ben Sinnott that's been in the system for a while, and Ben started stepping up a little bit last year. I thought he was underutilized, but he did get some opportunity. And this to me is the year that he steps up under David Blau. How can he look different in his scheme versus Kingsbury's scheme? Probably much different because Blau already said we're going to run the ball. Blocking wise, Ben Sinnott got to be a better blocker towards the end of the season than he had all year long. We know he can catch the ball and everything, but you well know if you play this game and you don't get the opportunity to go in, then it's kind of hard to show what you can do. And when you're not in there in a real game situation where, as they say, bullets are flying at you, that to me is a thing about Ben Sinnott. We know, tight end position, if you got, all those three guys, they add a different dimension and everything. So Ben Sinnott, depending on how Blau uses him this year, it can take him forward, or if he's not used, he can just be in standing still, marching in the same drum beat as he has in previous years. But I don't see that happening, because talking to Ben Sinnott at the end of last year, he just wanted opportunity to be able to get in there and show what he could do. And towards the end of the season, I believe that they were able to do that a little bit more. Blocking, as I said, got much better. And we know that he can catch the ball out of the backfield. He can catch the ball, just giving him opportunity in this offense, which will add to the offense even a little bit more with everything else that they've done so far in free agency. So I'm giving, a shout out to Ben Sinnott that this will be his year to, I didn't see that in training camp preseason last year with Ben Sinnott, because I was hard on him. I said, man, he needs to step up, but he did step up. So I'm looking for him even more so this year in a new offensive scheme to really show what he can do.
Yeah.
So
I'm not giving up on Ben.
Me neither.
So with you being being around the building, kind of privy to more things that the typical person isn't privy to, staying on the Ben Sinnott situation, like I was basically saying from a coaching perspective, a lot of times players may have an ability, but a coach may not believe in him. He may not be getting the X's and O's or a specific technique that they're trying to use in the blocking game or things of that nature. But we've seen other tight ends in our room such as Carson Yankoff, look good in the preseason, and then the season comes and we don't see him anymore. And then it was just predominantly Zach Ertz. So do you think it was like one of those things where it was like a Cliff maybe didn't trust him, or some of the other tight ends? Because, you had John Bates, which was traditionally your blocking tight end, and then Zach ran the specific routes and things of that nature. So was it that thing amongst the the reporter pool?
You well know, if anybody has ever played sports and whatever, coaches have their favorites. That's just the bottom line. And Zach Ertz has been there before. I mean, this is sure money. You know what you're getting with Zach from the beginning. Nobody's going to take his starting position when he was in there. So it's going to be less touches for a Ben Sinnott unless he's just showing off and everything. So I think it was just a situation of the offensive scheme, because we well know Don Jones basically said coming in here as the new defensive coordinator that he's giving everybody almost like a cheat sheet as far as getting to know each player, basically learning each player, kind of like putting together a game plan of development for each and every player. I love that, because you're going to find out exactly what you got in developing those players. Now, on the offensive side, like you said, with the Ben Sinnott, was he developed to the most? I can't say that he wasn't, because during training camp, they were giving him the ball. He had opportunities. But again, when it comes to game situation, can people turn that practice into game situation? And we well know everybody can't do that. Not saying that Ben could not do that, but I just think that he was caught up in a situation that he was behind Zach Ertz, and he wasn't going to, and they were similar in talent, skill-wise to a certain degree, because catching the ball, upfield, in the middle, and all of those things, he was not going to take that away from Zach as long as Zach was healthy. So I think it was just more so fitting him into the scheme. Did he pick up the scheme? And also, he wasn't going to beat out Zach Ertz. It's just the thing is that some coaches have their favorite players. Even if you are a diamond in the rough, if you don't get that opportunity, you'll never be able to see that you were the diamond in the rough. And I think that was what he got caught up in, is scheme-wise, as far as being able to get in there under Cliff Kingsbury, where he's starting fresh. You can just say that he's starting fresh right now with Blau. And it's up to Ben Simmons. Let me tell you, if coach will put me in a game situation in basketball, when the coach put me in, I said, you'll never take me out. Because if you give me the opportunity, I'm never giving you an opportunity to look at anybody else. That's what Ben Sinnott has to do this year. He's got to get in there when they give him the opportunity, doing the OTAs, doing training camp, because I hear all the times people had an outstanding OTAs, outstanding training camp, and then when you come to the season, you can't find them. So my thing is, you're giving this opportunity under a new offensive coordinator. What are you going to do with that? Be the person that they never have to look at anybody else, because right now is your opportunity to take it and run with it. Ben Sinnott.
Yeah. Definitely. And we actually had a comment here on that was telling Reedie. So we have this thing called Reedie knows and Z knows. So we kind of predict things, and then when it happens, we kind of boast and brag and say, okay, Reedie knows, Z knows, and things of that nature. So one of our partners, he was telling Reedie, he said, hey, Reedie, when it comes to wide receivers, Donna knows. So, he's shouting you out.
Appreciate that.
he's talking about the Ayuk thing. You're not necessarily being sold on Ayuk, and I follow that same pathway. Like Z claims it's a lock for Ayuk.
I told him I'm in the group chat with him and Jayden, so I know it's a lot.
Well, let me just say this: even though him and Jayden go back a long ways and whatever, it's not just sign, seal, and deliver. Just because I'm your best friend,
yeah.
But I think that everybody, again, like you said, everybody's looking at, oh man, look what he did in San Francisco. Adam Peters is from there. He knows him. The Commanders could have got him a year ago, remember?
Yeah.
When he was there doing a trade. Did they bite on that? No, they did not bite on that. So again, I'm just saying that you can't always look in one pot. Look, because as they say, you can put all the ingredients in a cake, and sometimes you miss one ingredient, and guess what? That cake doesn't rise well. So again, I'm just looking at this is you look at who Washington has in the house right now, with Terry and all the other guys, Jefferson, bringing Diami back, Burks and Lane and whatever. I really like that group so far. But you still, and again, like I said, you haven't even talked about Deebo Samuels, bringing him back, how he would fit in there, because Adam Peters and Coach Quinn did say, Coach Quinn said this at the combines, we really didn't use Deebo to really get his full potential out because of the injuries across the board. The way that they really wanted to use Deebo, we didn't even see that. We only got a taste of it. Imagine if we got the full spoonful of him and what that would have looked like. So don't dismiss the fact that he may not be back here in a Commander's uniform either.
Yeah, I'm on record saying that I wanted Deebo back, but I just didn't think that the money that he's going to want would kind of align with what they wanted to do. But we're sitting at basically 50 million in cap right now. You're probably going to need 10 to 15, 20 million to sign your draft player. Well, we only got 5 picks this year, so it might not cost that much, but we'll see. You know what I'm saying? It's still definitely an option. I think if Deebo comes down on his number, then I think we will see him back on a 1 year.
And he may have to come down on his number because nobody has bid on his numbers yet. So we're getting close. As we get close to the end of free agency and everything, you're going to see numbers come down, and they may be able to snag him for a 1 year deal to bring those numbers down, just depending on if anybody else is going to pull on the string of what he's asking for. So it'll be interesting. Like I said, Commanders still have time enough to decide about the wide receiver room. They don't have to be in a rush. Everybody wants them to be in a rush to get that wide receiver. Well, guess what? If they wait a little longer, they may be able to get them for a lot less than what they're asking for right now.
Yeah, and then you influence the top of the draft, the guys that are maybe looking to come up for a receiver or something like that. You kind of, if you play into that trade back, scenario or whatever, we haven't even touched on that, but they can move around the board. So it's chess, not checkers.
As they say, hold your horses. Don't let go of the reins yet.
Definitely. And I was going to say, so to kind of shift onto the other side of the, the spectrum, defense, Deron Payne. All right. So he's coming up on the last year. He's the highest paid on the team, sitting at like 27, 28 million, 29, somewhere in there, cap hit. Many would argue that his production doesn't align with his cap number. Peters expressed no desire to restructure or extend him. He was going to play out on this deal for this year, but there seemed to still be circulating rumors that he could be. I think as of yesterday there was another rumor that came out that he could be shopped closer to the draft or whatnot, in different scenarios. I know, like, for me, I'm a Deron Payne is a Z guy. Like, I really like Deron Payne. I like what he brings. I do feel like that he has more to give, and hopefully, he's able to stay here, play it out, and lure himself another contract. That'll be the perfect world. But, in a situation where we try to model what a lot of the more winning organizations do, i.e. the Eagles, you trade people early while they have worth. And we kind of missed that curve a little bit, but I still think he does still have some value. Do you see, or have you heard anything? Like, is it anything circulating around Deron Payne? Could he still be moved? Again, like I said, I heard Adam say play out on this contract, but it still sit there. I'm just looking at like, well, if you just have no desire to touch this contract, and you're not pressing for money, so it ain't that, but maybe there could be a sign and trade, or maybe you can move him to another team closer to him or during the draft, and get yourself like a third or something. I don't know, but it's still his name just always stirs up in trade talks. So what's your thoughts, evaluation on Payne?
Yeah, I think it's a wait and see situation where Tim Settle, that middle has to be plugged up. They ran on them a lot, more so around the outside, but still they did hit up the middle some. You think about John Allen when they didn't sign him back at the end of his time with the Commanders. They allowed him to go, and he was coming off an injury year too. But Daron Payne has always stepped up, as far as in those years. And maybe they're saying that we don't want to get rid of him yet because we did put in a Tim Settle. We did get him, which will make him better. I think it's still a question mark of what they want to do there. And I haven't heard anything solid as far as them maybe trying to use him in the draft to get more pick. And I think we have to wait until that comes closer to that situation to see what's going on. And the fact that they didn't try to, deal him early on in free agency because they could have done that if they wanted to. But he has 1 year left on his contract. And Adam Peters said going into free agency and at the combines that the most critical signing would be Laremy Tunsil, and to get that out the way early, nobody else was going to be in the conversation, but getting that done, where I was happy about that. But Daron's situation is one of those delicate ones, is that he does have talent. And what people don't realize, again, is under Dante Jones, what will Daron Payne look like under a new a defensive coordinator? We haven't really talked about that. And remember, we talked about the development plan for each player and whatever. Sometimes under certain systems, the best is not pulled out of you until somebody comes in new to navigate that position a little bit. So I think the Commanders are waiting to see when we get into the OTAs and all of those things, because they can still, have a little wiggle room in what to do before the draft starts. Is that I think they still like what Daron Payne can do. I know that during training camp starting last year, that they talked about him coming back in smaller. He looked stronger. And they saw some things in Daron that maybe a lot of people have not seen. So when you bring in a new defensive coordinator, what does that player look like? You all talked about that earlier on, is underneath different people. You talked about that with Ben Sinnott. Underneath different people, you can look a lot different if given the opportunity. Where does his game need to develop? The people surrounding him, do they make you better? Because you well know that the supporting cast around you make you look much better. When Wise was in there, Daron Payne was solid. You're talking about some of the other people on the other side of Daron Payne with Settles in there, a bigger body, a bigger, thicker body that you're not going to be able to just brush out the way, push out the way. Settle is going to add so much more depth in there as far as what he does, the room that he takes up. So I'm not really giving up on Daron Payne yet, because I really like Daron Payne. Sometimes you get mad about your situation, then you say, I'm going to show you. You well know that when people doubt you, you basically come back and say, I'm going to show you what I can do. And I think that the verdict is still out as far as Daron Payne being a Commander next year. You well know it's hard to find guys in the middle that can plug up the middle. And who do you replace him with? I mean, really, who do you replace him with? If you don't keep him, who do you plug in that position? Johnny Newton, I think, stepped up last year, and I really want to see even what he does under Jones's leadership, because you think about it, the defense overall last year, it never did take off, and so it had so many changing parts and everything. Now that you got a new guy coming in here, you've got a new guy that's over the defensive line. What is that going to look like? So don't give yourself, give your players away so quickly when you have no one that you've really called out to replace them with. So I'm just saying that I like Deron Payne right now. I'm willing to let him play out this final year.
Yeah, speaking of, staying on the defense side in the middle, we went out and we signed Leo Shenault from Kansas City, presumably as the middle linebacker. So, like, with that, I'm a big Bobby Wagner fan, and I think a lot of people within the base, they were kind of out on him due to, the lack of coverage ability at his age, but I think he's still playing at a high level. I'll take what he gives you in the run game versus a couple plays where he shouldn't have been on a running back outside of the backfoot on a wheel route and things of that nature. But like bringing Durante Jones in here, that mind coming from all of those defensive coordinators that he's worked under for years. Like, what does this mean for like a Quan Martin or, some of those other players, a Jordan McGee? What I'm saying? We're curious to see what Frankie Louvu does being moved around in different places, because the one thing he said in his opening presser was, it doesn't matter where you start, but it's where you finish. So that told me that guys are going to be moved around in the scheme, and, he's going to be giving different disguises and different things of that nature. So, like, what does that mean to, like, some of those players that kind of like are on the bubble where, a lot of people are kind of like giving up on them, but they have shown the ability to play good in moments?
Yeah, I'm with you on the Bobby Wagner situation. I think that he adds so many other things to this team, as far as it's hard to get in there and be calling plays and all of that kind of stuff that a linebacker that has been around for a long time, that's seen it all and everything. So I think Bobby Wagner adds value to keep on this team. And you talk about some of the other players, Quan Martin, who struggled mightily last year under this defensive scheme. And Durante Jones said, they said, what are you going to play, a 4-3, 3-4? He said, a little bit of both. He said, I'm not even looking at that because it changes up with your personnel. Or do you have the personnel to run a 3-4 or 4-3? But he said he's not getting tripped up on that. So I think that players like Quan Martin, who struggled last year, who was benched at the end of last year, that this could only mean greater things for him moving forward. Because again, we talk about that development plan as far as putting you in right situations in defense. Do you fit better over here? Remember Mikey Sainristil, when he came to the Commanders, he wasn't inside. He was inside. They said, oh, we're going to take a chance and put you on the outside. Well, he just kind of like took off on the outside. So you got cornerbacks that can play multiple positions. Mikey can play inside. He can play outside. The development of players, to me, is the key thing moving forward. When you look at all of them, Trey Amos just had an outstanding first year before he got hurt. I mean, he came in and just exploded. And then, like we said, Robinson that you're bringing in, he can play inside and outside. So a lot of the players that you're looking at is you're figuring out where do they best fit at. On the safety position, Will Harris got hurt, was out, I think, 6 games and everything. So to have him back, does Quan fit better over here versus over here? What was happening with Quan? Was he put in situations that he shouldn't have been put in? Was other people out of place? That's all the things that Jones is going to come in here, because Durante Jones said he's looked at all the film to understand each player in putting together that development plan for each player. So that's what I want to see addressed in OTAs and training camp, early training camp, is with him under as the leader of the defense. How does he fit these guys that struggled last year in better situation to where they really fit? Quan could be switched totally from where he was at the year before. And like I said, Will Harris, to see him in there, Butler, all of those guys in that position, where do they better fit at? Was it the scheme or was it them? We're going to find out that real quickly. So again, I'm waiting to see Jones, how he puts together his defense and basically look at each player to see where they fit better. So I'm not giving up on anybody. I'm looking at, we've got a fresh start with some new bodies in there as far as coaches to see can they turn the tables of what this team is really going to look like. So no way Quan could have struggled that much from one year to the other. I mean, because the year before he wasn't, you know, it wasn't like busted plays like that. So when I look at just the different, you know, Coach Quinn takes over towards the end of the year, and you know, it's a lot to take in. Again, let's just wait. Let's just kind of like put on the brakes a little bit and see how this works out with the new defensive coordinator in the OTAs and training camp. And then you'll be able to better answer questions about, was it the player or was it the scheme that they were in or the wrong position?
Facts.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So yeah. Anything else, Reedie?
I mean, if my coaches put me in a situation playing basketball and whatever, and they had me playing a point guard where I'm not the best dribbler, but if you put me at that 2 guard, I'm gonna shoot the lights out of somebody.
Facts.
Automatic green, the kids would say on 2K, huh?
It's money.
So my last question, just overall, I'm gonna stay on the defensive side of the ball. Like, what is for you right now as the roster is constructed right now? What position group needs the most help?
I think that looking at Leo Chanel, who you bring in here as the linebacker, that just adds to that. If you're able to keep a Bobby, if Bobby wants to come back and sign, and then you got Leo, then you got Jordan McGee, then you got some of the other guys, then you pretty much have that position intact. It doesn't hurt to even just get another linebacker, but that's only if Bobby doesn't come back. But I think that you have to look at the safety position still and the cornerback position, because I don't think it's enough depth there. Those are the 2 areas that I would say needs addressing, because you did the front so well. But if a David Bailey is available at number 7, and I interviewed him a lot during the combines, I ain't going to pass up on him either, because with his abilities and everything, but I might pass up on him for running back. But on defense, those are the 2 areas that to me still addressing is safety, maybe getting another one in here, and then the cornerback. You definitely need another corner in here, even with the talent that you got there, because of the depth at that position.
Yeah. My last question gonna be a little different. Were you on the Zoom when Revo did his press conference?
Yes. Love.
So I watched that press conference the other night, and I literally was in here like, I ain't gonna say I was in here tears and nothing. I wasn't on nothing like that, but I literally was in here like left at like heartfelt and motivated, just listening to the interview in full, him talk about, you know, his journey and what keeps him going every day, and like everything he said was just inspirational and point. So I was gonna say, like, from that interview, what did you get from that? How did that interview make you feel? Because I myself, I even went and DM'd him, like, you know, I don't even know if he ever gonna see it, but I DM'd him and specifically like, you know, thank you for, you know, what you said in the interview. Like, it's bigger than just football, and it's motivational on many different levels, many different aspects outside of just that. So like, just in life in general. So like, how did that interview feel to you?
You know, I love Jeremy Reeds. Loved him during the course of the football season, because he was true in what he said after games and everything. What took us so long when you win a game, or we got to do better. I mean, he was really hard on himself and the team, and it should have been, as far as when they were struggling, you know, during the course of the season. It was frustrating. You could tell he was passionate about it. But what I took from that interview, when I was asking him the question about leadership, you know, coming back from adversity, and all the other questions that were asked of him during that interview, I well know and understand what it takes to come back from adversity, injuries, and the stuff that would have made an average person or person in general not be able to come back from those things. But when you have a determination of coming through hard situations, and coming out on the other side a better person, which is what Jeremy was basically saying. You have to walk away motivated and encouraged. I mean, he had so many great nuggets that he dropped in that interview. I mean, I was posting, you know, my questions to him, because when I went back and listened to him, I said, this is real life. And that's what he was talking about, real life, not just football, but real life, being appreciative of coming back from hard times and being able to get on the other side of that, and then given the opportunity from leadership to extend your contract when you're not even up for it. That tells you something about what they think of you, not just as a player, but more so as a person in your leadership. And he talked a little bit about his mom and the things that they put in him. You had to walk away being encouraged, even if you're not a football person, a sports person, just a life person. You had to walk away really feeling impacted by what he said in his interview. Kudos to Jeremy Reeves for just being the person that he is beyond football. And that's the person that I really appreciate, not the football player, but the person he is.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And like you said, definitely left me encouraged. And like I said, I had to just thank him. Just say, like, I really appreciate that, because it was deep. It was deep. And like he mentioned, the turtle wins the race.
Look, I had to repeat that to him. I said, oh, I like that. He said, the turtle wins the race. Everybody always wants to be the lion or the cheaters to finish fast. But sometimes it's not about finishing first or the fastest. It's about the lessons that you learned along the way and slowing down to get the message behind all of that. And sometimes people go so fast that they miss really what they should have gotten. And so I love what that I was chuckling myself over that. I said, that's a write down moment. And I had to tweet that out. As far as that, it's not the cheetah or the lion or the fastest person that wins the race. It's the person that slows down to get the message behind that.
Yeah, definitely. It was definitely powerful. So yeah, thanks for sharing, you know, your insight on that.
And I just want to take the time to just thank you, because everything that you have dealt with, and doing my research kind of like on you, I kind of came across your website and some of the things that you went through. And I went through something similar. You know, a lot of people know from me, I had a left brachial plexus injury. I was in the military. And I basically was completely paralyzed for my left arm. So like your story kind of resonates with me. And I just want to thank you for the work that you're doing with everything that you got going on. And I just, from the bottom of my heart, I just love to see things like that. So I just, from me and from Z, I want to say thank you.
Appreciate that. All of us have a story. I tell people, all of us have a story. A lot of people don't know what people go through. That's the reason why I could really appreciate what Jeremy Reeves was saying, because I can relate 100%. All of us have different things that we go through. It's our story and whatever, but it's for us to talk about our stories to help pull somebody else through what they may be going through. So I commend you for coming through what you went through and everything. It's not always easy, but I tell people I'm the most competitive person ever. So I don't like to lose at anything. So I don't think anything in my power, if I had the chance, was going to stop me. So I appreciate the opportunity to be on here to chat it, to kick it up with you all. We're going to see who's true. We're going to see who's right about that wide receiver situation.
Yeah, facts.
I don't think it's going to be Z. I'll be locked.
Sure.
But tell them what they can. Oh, go ahead.
I said greatly appreciate you as well. And definitely I was going to lead to that. Definitely let our followers know where they can find you and find your work. Go ahead.
Yeah, love for you all on Instagram. That's where I post quite a bit. DJ Hop 32. That 32 is meant for Donna Hopkins and Magic Johnson. Just want to throw that out for you, my favorite player. And then on X, Donna J Hopkins _. But if you put in Donna Hopkins, you'll be able to do that. And then Tony McGee's Pro Football Plus comes on Mid-Atlantic Sports Net Matson. And then our podcast, In the Minute Sports, Tony and I chatted up a lot of things I posted there. So love for you to follow, and I appreciate all of you all that are following and the new ones that will be following.
Yeah, and one of my boys is affiliated with you. I'm not sure exactly how, but B-Dub, Brandon Williams. It's Brandon Williams.
Yes,
right?
Brandon. Yeah. Brandon is our photographer. Tony McGee's Pro Football Plus. He's our photographer. Does a fantastic job and everything. So shout out to Brandon.
Yeah, shout out to
my guru. My game day guy, but terrific work. So glad to have Brandon all there. It's been fun having him be a part of the show.
Yeah, definitely. Salute. So
great work.
Yes, definitely. He definitely gets snaps of us when we at the game when he can, and
I tell Brandon, I need some fan reaction.
Shout out.
And this year on Tony McGee's Pro Football Plus, we're trying to invite more fans to come in. Fan of the week, question of the week. I'm always lurking out there during the game, trying to get fan insight. So watch out for me. If you see me, holler at me.
We'll do. We'll be at camp. We'll be at camp too. We're gonna holler at you every time we see you.
Yeah,
we family now.
We'll be
family.
We'll be out there sweating profusely.
That's all right. Just make sure you wear a hat.
Facts. Facts.
Thank you, Donna.
Thank you, Donna. Take care.
Everybody, Donna Hopkins from Tony McGee's Pro Football. Yeah, Z, good show. Anything you'd like to add?
Nah, only thing I will add is make sure y'all like, share, subscribe. Thank you for getting us over 1,900. We're still on our road to 2K. So if you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button, hit the bell, shout us out, tell a friend, and stay tuned. We, as always, when there's any breaking news or important news, we'll definitely hop on and do an episode, but make sure you look out on Wednesday night. We have our collab show with the Ball and the Burgundy podcast. Ball and Burgundy podcast and Juan Gotti Talking Sports and Reedie Zee. We all are the Burgundy Breakdown. So make sure y'all tune in for that as well. But if Reedie don't have anything else, he's gonna go ahead and close us out.
All of these shows just pretty much blur together at this point now.
Yeah.
It's like,
Facts.
When can we get to the games? I'm ready to get to the games. Let's get there.
Facts.
But until next time, we'll see y'all Wednesday night, man. We want to thank y'all for the support, but we're gone.
Reedie Zee show. It's the Reedie Zee show.